Hello, and thank you once again for joining us on the Apply Board YouTube channel. We are talking another campus conversation. Today, I am very thrilled to be joined by the Dean of the Faculty of Business from the University of New Brunswick. Dr. Michelle Rod is joining me today. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Doctor.
My pleasure, Andrew. My pleasure.
It is business school focus, and you are the Dean of the Faculty of Business at UNB. Before we get into some specifics, what can you tell me about your role and a little bit about the school there at University of New Brunswick?
Sure. Well, I've been in the role now approaching 2 years, came from Carleton University previous to UNB. Interesting thing is that when we talk about business at the University of New Brunswick, we actually have two faculties. So I am the Dean of the Faculty of Business on the St. John campus, but we also have a Faculty of Management on the Fredericton campus. And the long-term goal under our president's new One UNB mandate is that the two faculties will join and become one school. But that's a few years down the road. But it's the smaller of the two campuses, obviously in St. John. We have generally 55 to 60 students coming into our undergraduate programs every year, which is probably 2/3 to a half of what we see in Fredericton. Smaller number of programs, but as we'll talk a little bit, I'll get you familiar with our two undergraduate programs and our flagship MBA program.
Excellent. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those programs. We'll start with the undergraduate programs because we see a fairly sizable amount of our international students sort of pursuing that undergraduate education. What can you tell me sort of about those two main programs that you're offering?
Sure. So we, as with most business schools, the typical undergraduate program, like many others, we have a Bachelor of Business Administration, and that is standard fare in terms of the subject matter: accounting, economics, finance, management, marketing. Although people looking on the website might see we also have a major in e-commerce, that's evolving into a digital business design major. But it's a 4-year standard business degree, teaching people management skills so that they can become gainfully employed, especially if they've done our co-op program. We have a very successful accredited co-op program, which is very attractive to our undergraduate students. More often than not, after their third work term, they walk straight into full-time employment with the organizations with which they've been doing their work terms. We also have a smaller program called the Bachelor of Applied Management. Now, this has been in existence for quite some time, and it was basically initiated with a bunch of 2+2 arrangements with colleges throughout the country, where programs would, with a more vocational orientation, would then be interested in sending students to us to complete the final 2 years of a business degree, having taken the first 2 years at the college, and then get the management skills that they would require by completing years 3 and 4 with us. So we have a Bachelor of Applied Management General. We also have a Bachelor of Applied Management Accounting, which is also very popular. And that's bringing in 30 students every year as well into our Applied Management undergraduate degree. We're increasingly looking at the BAM as a vehicle to attract international students, specifically in one area. Although General Management and Accounting will continue, we have a hospitality and tourism. We used to have a hospitality and tourism stream within our Bachelor of Applied Management, and that is gaining increasing attention, especially from Southeast Asia. Lots of colleges and universities want to explore these 2+2s with us, specifically within the Bachelor in Applied Management, hospitality, tourism. But as I said, we've got the general and we've also got the accounting as well.
Excellent.
So those are our two undergrads.
Yeah, excellent. And the postgraduate, we also have a fairly sizable. It's generally quite common for our international students who have picked up experience in their home country to come here seeking that next level, to seek that postgrad, to seek that sort of work placement afterwards. What can you tell me about sort of the postgrad streams as well?
Yeah, our MBA is, I'm incredibly proud of our MBA. We have a somewhat unique MBA in that it is a very condensed 1-year program. So it's very attractive to students who want to complete their master's degree in 1 year. Also being competitively priced, that makes us very attractive as well. And people who graduate from our MBA, international students, have historically tended to get a 3-year postgraduate work permit. So our MBA in particular has been a very popular vehicle for international students to gain entry to Canada and get their work permits and then become Canadian citizens. As a result, the majority of people in our MBA, I think we're at 85% international students in our MBA. the vast majority of whom want to see St. John become their home, or at least the province of New Brunswick or Canada. Number of different majors that people can specialize in. We've got general management, we've got international business, we have technology, management and entrepreneurship, we have business development and professional sales, and we have project management. Very, very popular with international students, and we've been recruiting successfully 16 countries represented in our MBA. And despite the fact that we're in a global pandemic, our numbers this year have actually gone up. We have 5 more students this year than we had last year in our MBA. And if the numbers hold next year, we're going to have a pleasant problem in that historically we've sort of been in that 80 to 90 a year. We have acceptances from 250 to start with us next year. So it's a very booming degree, probably because, as I've already mentioned, the pathway to immigration, but also it's broken into 5 modules, and the 5th module is what we call a business consulting project. And it really gears students up for getting straight into the workforce, because they have a very applied placement basically for 9 weeks in the local business community, working with local organizations, and it's resulted in a tremendous number of our students actually staying, working with some of the big employers like JDI or Irving Oil or McCain's, Ganong, Crosby's, but also a number of our students are very entrepreneurial and start up their own businesses.
That's I'm sure that's music to the ears of plenty of our viewers, and absolutely right up the alley of the sort of opportunities that international students are always coming to us to talk about. Another thing that international students are always sort of asking about when it comes to any program at all is sort of admission requirements, without getting too specific into program by program sort of requirements and that sort of thing. What sort of focus do you think international students or students at all that are applying to be a part of these programs, whether it be post-grad or undergrad, what sort of things do the admission team look for? What really stands out in terms of an application?
Well, if I focus on the undergraduate first, basically we're almost in a bit of a transition zone now in terms of really revisiting what we're expecting to see from high school applicants. And it looks as though we're probably going to be relaxing the math requirement. And when I say relaxing, it's more in line with what the province has said. Successful undergraduate business students require the following type of math. So in a lot of cases, the pre-calculus requirement, which has proven to be an obstacle for a number of countries, international students looking to come, not having had the math that focuses on calculus or pre-calculus, we're looking at revisiting that so that it's really just math foundations. But the 2 big ones are the math requirement, the English requirement, and then 3 other additional university level courses that bring the average up to, I mean, we're looking at a minimum of 70 to be considered. Now, again, in any given year, it could be much more competitive, and we're really only accepting people with an 80% in those top 5 courses. But it's fairly standard fare in terms of those entry requirements. No essays required, automatically considered for entry scholarships, sort of guaranteeing residence for people who want to stay in residence. We're a bit of an interesting commuter campus in that we've just had a new residence build, but we're about 4 kilometers from the city center. So people come from the downtown, or uptown as it's called here, on the buses up to campus. And then they head back to where they might live in the city, but we've built another residence here on campus, trying to make that campus sticky so people want to stay, not just here for classes and things like that. The MBA has actually physically moved locations. So our MBA is now uptown. It is located in a heritage building in uptown St. John, adjacent to what shortly will be known as something else, but currently known as Economic Development Greater St. John. There's accelerator incubator space there. So we're co-located with a lot of economic development activities in the uptown hub. Lots of collision space for our MBA students to bang into people working uptown in the various businesses. And again, with the MBA, we're looking at 2 to 3 years work experience. We're looking at an equivalent of about a B average in whichever international program students have been in prior to the MBA. I believe the IELTS is IELTS score, I think, is a 7. We're looking for a 7 on the IELTS. And that's essentially it. It's we've got a very active recruiting team that spends an awful lot of time prior to the pandemic at various international recruiting events, 3 of which I went to prior to COVID. I was in Brazil, I was in Peru, I was in Dubai recruiting students into our MBA. But we have fairs across the entire globe, and a very dedicated team in our MBA. So very, very popular program, located in the entrepreneurial gateway of St. John. And as I said, it's very popular for international students because they see it as a really attractive opportunity to actually move to Canada and become Canadian, whether they stay in St. John or elsewhere in the province. All our graduates with the 1 year get a 3-year postgraduate work permit.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. You've made some great points about sort of the changes and the trends having to deal with COVID, obviously, in the last year. And having been in the position you've been in for the time you have, what sort of trends have you seen, we'll say, in the last couple of years, and where do you see things going in the next couple of years in terms of the types of students that you're attracting, as well as the things those students are interested in, the sort of the ways that those students want to apply what they're learning at UNB? Where do you see that going in the future, and what have you noticed in the near past?
I think the biggest trend we have seen is both a demand on the part of students to get what I'm about to tell you, as well as universities stepping up, or specific programs stepping up and providing exactly this. And that is experiential learning. It's, I mean, 5 years ago, everyone was touting how innovative they are in their programs. Now everyone's talking about how graduates and employers are demanding that our graduates have this experiential learning opportunities that don't necessarily involve co-op, but as I said, co-op is one of the programs that we have. You're learning to do the job that you're going to be hired into, but it can be less immersive. But it's opportunities for you to apply the things that you're learning in class in a real setting. So it could be things like organizational visits. It could be guest lectures from people in the business community. It could be the use of simulations or cases, or project-based experiential learning. It could be internships, could be job shadowing. So this is a big trend in that we're trying to provide all of our students at least one experiential learning opportunity in their undergraduate program. Of course, they do get it in the MBA with the BCP, the culminating 9-week business consulting project. But it's a big issue, especially for programs too, who are taking in students who might not necessarily have as much work experience as others. You want to give them that experiential learning, and it's an opportunity for them to apply the material they've learned in class, but it also, if it's truly experiential, gives them the opportunity to reflect on that learning and to be very critical problem solvers and think outside of the box and be able to apply novel ways of approaching programs or problems. So it's probably the biggest trend, is this whole movement towards really pronounced experiential learning opportunities for our students. Another trend I see, and it's early days because we're not yet out of the pandemic, but I think we are certainly looking at some of the lessons learned, and that we don't necessarily have to knee-jerk and go back to exactly the way things were prior to the pandemic, but we've learned things in terms of alternate delivery. We know that students prefer in-person, but there are some value-added features to being able to do some hybrid activities. So we've been able to experiment over the last year with alternate delivery methods in conjunction with in-person. I mean, we've been blessed on our campus with the kind of newer infrastructure that's enabled us to have in-person classes throughout the pandemic. I mean, following public health guidelines, socially distancing, masking, reduced capacity in the rooms. But we've had in-person throughout the entire pandemic. So we've learned some lessons with respect to combining in-person with virtual. And the fact that once the pandemic is over, we don't necessarily will go back strictly to everything's in person, but we can incorporate some of these blended learning models that have proven successful during the pandemic, and which will probably pay dividends in going forward as well after we come out of this. So those are the two trends I would see, is experimenting with delivery and then experiential learning being a big deal.
And not to paint too general a brush, but what sort of types of students have you found that have shown a lot of interest in UNB and have really been able to succeed in these programs?
Well, we're a small regional university that historically in our BBA has found 80% of our undergraduate students from this part of the province. So we really are a school that has been attractive to essentially first-time university students. A lot of our students are first-generation university. Their parents never had a university education, and so they like to have their students a little bit closer to home. So we find that has been historically a big proportion of our undergraduate students. I think we've historically had about 14% into our undergraduate programs, international students, but our new president has laid down the gauntlet that will increase to 25%. We want to increase by 10%. Now, we exceed that greatly in our MBA, but at least with the undergrad, we'd like to have about a quarter of our students be international students. So again, our international recruitment efforts have been ramped up to try and meet those goals as well. But yeah, it's a regional university. It's a university that appeals to students who like small classes or smaller classes, where they're not just a number, but they are a face whose name will be known by the instructor. I think the biggest thing, and this is largely word of mouth, I don't know that we have this actively in our promotion, but our university is really an integral part of the community. The community tremendously values UNB SJ, and we value our partnerships with the community. So people coming to UNB Faculty of Business in St. John know that they're going to be involved in some way in the community, whether it's through co-op or internships or project-based learning, where we're bringing companies into the classroom. They get to really familiarize themselves, and the community really relies and relishes the opportunity to work with us. So we really are a community university, a community campus.
That's excellent. I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to take up too much of your afternoon.
No worries.
Is there anything else you'd like to sort of say about the university, or even about New Brunswick itself, about St. John, about the programs? The floor is yours to sort of really expound on the virtues of both the program and the area.
Well, what I can say is, based on my 2 years experience, I have absolutely loved my move to New Brunswick. I spent, I've lived all over the planet, and I've been an academic in 4 different countries. Most recently, prior to here, I was in Ottawa for 10 years. And for me, just the pace of life and the atmosphere in the Maritimes is fantastic. The people are fantastic. The pace is not what you're going to get in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal. It's a much more relaxed pace. The people are so friendly. I have a real aversion to rush hour. It doesn't exist in St. John. I mean, if it takes you 10 minutes to get from one side of the city to the other, you must have hit red lights, because that's a long time. So it's just a much more relaxed place, but it's got everything you would need. The uptown has become so gentrified. There are all kinds of restaurants and cultural activities that are going on. We have concerts down on the wharf every summer. The Imperial Theater uptown is a fantastic location for the arts. So it's just it's a small town feel, but you've got a city, within the surrounding area of about 100,000, 90,000, and the cost of living, ridiculous compared to where I used to live. I sold my house and could have bought 5 here with that from Ontario. So, I mean, students are probably not looking at purchasing property when they arrive, but just the cost of living here is so much cheaper. We're getting a much more international flavor in St. John. We're attracting so many people from all over the planet, and you see these people setting up their own businesses, restaurants. In the market, we've got all kinds of countries represented in our international markets, and it's just a really, well, for me, a great place to end my career as I sort of my swan song into retirement. It's a fantastic place that gives you the exposure to the outdoors, the Bay of Fundy, the nature parks, the trails, the hiking. It's wonderful. It's really, really wonderful.
Excellent. Dr. Rod, thank you so much today for your time, for talking with us, and for giving us all the information about the University of New Brunswick. You can find the University of New Brunswick more information on the Apply Board platform, and as well all over the internet. We have tons of information about the schools, and you can also find them on the University of New Brunswick website. find more information about business programs, the majors you might want to take, the programs you might want to do. All that's available on the Apply Board blog and in some videos here on the Apply Board YouTube. Dr. Rob, one more time, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for all your wise words. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Andrew. My pleasure. Good luck to everyone.